Minutes starts now.
They still want to know why in Las Vegas. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
I can understand if one person has done something to somebody, but this person went out and killed so many people that he didn't know.
She survived Sunday night shooting spree. 59 others did not. 527 were hurt. Some remain in critical condition.
We pray there'll be no more death.
That was at a vigil last night. Investigators still don't know much about the dead gunman, Stephen Paddock, other than a massive arsenal the retired accountant had. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal live in Las Vegas.
Dave, authorities say Stephen Paddock knocked out 2 of the windows in the Mandalay Bay suite. 23 guns found in his room. More were found at his home. Some ammonium nitrate was found in his vehicle. Authorities say he had 10 suitcases. He booked the room starting September 28th, and how he got those guns to that room is key.
Obviously, every hotel has video. I'm sure that we're going back and reviewing every ounce of that.
That's Assistant Sheriff Todd Fasulo. There are reports that there were indications some of the guns may have been altered and that Paddock had made large gambling transactions in the weeks before the shooting. But authorities are searching his properties in Nevada to try to discover any motive here, Dave.
Jessica, President Trump will visit Las Vegas tomorrow. Later this hour, he'll take off for Puerto Rico nearly 2 weeks after Hurricane Maria hits.
The recovery is uneven. The devastation so broad, so extensive. Just 5% of the Puerto Rican people have electricity. About half have water. 1/3 have cell service.
Fox's Geraldo Rivera in San Juan. The president will also get an update in Puerto Rico from the governor of the Virgin Islands, also left decimated by Maria and Irma. Millions of rock fans are mourning Tom Petty. The rock legend suffered cardiac arrest Sunday, and after conflicting reports of his death, confirmation came last night. Petty and his Heartbreakers had just wrapped up a 40th anniversary tour. The Rock and Roll Hall of Famer was 66. This is Fox News. Fair and balanced.
I'm Jay Farner from Quicken Loans. The rate today on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.875%, APR 4.05%. But choosing the right mortgage lender means choosing much more than just a rate. Let me ask you, does calling the company with the best client service in America, with 11 J.D. Power Awards to prove it, matter? Does calling the company that invented Rocket Mortgage, the industry's most innovative, client-focused technology, matter? Does calling the company with 17,000-plus team members who are helping to rebuild the great cities of Detroit and Cleveland matter? Of course it matters. No wonder our clients have made Quicken Loans America's #1 online lender. Call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com for the best mortgage experience on earth. That's 800-QUICKEN.
Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
Hospitals were overflowing with victims of the gunman who fired on a concert from the 32nd floor of a Vegas hotel. Emergency personnel scrambling to deal with the aftermath of the Sunday attack that left 59 dead, 527 wounded. So far, there's no word on a motive. On our Ask the Governor program last night, Chris Christie responded to calls for tighter gun control. He says when someone passes required background checks and doesn't show any violent tendencies, there's really not much law enforcement can do.
And he is not a guy who took his own life. Is not going to be deterred by the idea that if he gets caught buying something that's we now make illegal, that he might go to jail.
New Jersey has the second strongest gun control laws in the nation behind Connecticut. Christie also didn't seem thrilled with the amnesty program being offered in Ocean County for those who have lied to get public benefits they were not entitled to. The controversial program was announced after several were arrested in Lakewood for stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Christie says he believes people should be held to account for their actions. I'm Eric Scott. This is the Town Square News Network.
Hi, this is Governor Chris Christie. Our communities throughout New Jersey are experiencing a heroin epidemic fueled by the abuse of opioids, often in the form of prescription painkillers. Help is available and recovery from addiction is possible, but you need to know the signs. Have you witnessed some changes in your behavior or the behavior of those you suspect might be suffering from an opioid addiction? Some common signs are increased irritability, social withdrawal, changes in sleep patterns, doctor shopping, and financial problems. These behaviors can be hard to spot, but multiple signs occurring together or suddenly could be cause for concern. Addiction is a disease, but recovery is within reach. To learn more about the signs of addiction or to get help, call 844-REACH-NJ or visit reachnj.gov. Again, Call 844-REACH-NJ or visit reachnj.gov. The signs you spot today could save a loved one tomorrow.
Our fantastic fall weather continues today with lots of sunshine to start, a few clouds building in this afternoon. Highs today lower 70s. Patchy fog possible tonight. It'll be comfortably cool with lows in the lower 50s, mid to upper 70s tomorrow, getting warmer with a mix of sun and clouds. I'm meteorologist Dan Zarrow.
Are you a victim of a crime in New Jersey, or do you know someone who is? Being a victim is difficult enough without having to search for help. The New Jersey Office of the Attorney General has made it easy to get the assistance you need and deserve. Visit njvictims.com to apply.
From Harry Hurley Way in the world's playground to the broadcast pioneers of Philadelphia Hall of Fame.
I want to congratulate my friend, Harry Hurley.
You're about to find out why Harry Hurley has been named to the Talkers magazine list of the 100 most important talk show hosts in the nation. Live from the studios of Town Square Media in Northfield, it's Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
Thank you very much. Chuck Malamut is here. Chuck is our exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program for the past 26 years. Chuck is literally not only my lifelong friend, just about, but my first client. And he's been with us ever since. Chuck is the managing director. He leads his team, the Malamut Group, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office for all of your financial planning needs. Turn to Chuck and the Malamut Group, 609-383-2010. The following program is presented by Chuck Malamut, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck Malamut. They do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, member SIPC. Chuck, before you get to your market update and you have a great third quarter review, we're going to talk equities and tax reform. We're going to talk economic data volatility. Nominal economic growth is supposed to continue. You're going to get into why and wherefore there. Equities and volatility. Before we get to all of that, let me bring up that yesterday was just another day in Mr. Trump's neighborhood. All three of the big indices, Dow Jones Industrial Average, the S&P, the NASDAQ, once again, all three at all-time highs.
Harry, good morning. All of us woke up yesterday, and one of the first things that a lot of us do as we start our day is we look at our phones. And the first thing that I saw, and I think probably most of your listeners saw, and you were right on it very early yesterday, was the tragic events of what happened in Las Vegas. We have friends there. You have friends, Harry. Fortunately, everyone I spoke to was safe. And obviously, we're all very, very upset about what happened and why it happened. But, the natural tendency is, okay, well, what's going on with the markets? And, I think we have had this discussion so many times now, and the futures were up. And as the day progressed, the market got better, and ultimately, we closed on a very, very high note, hitting new highs again for the most part. And I just sat back and I'm saying to myself, I'm saying to my colleagues, I was on the road yesterday traveling, that the market is clearly focused on fundamentals here, and not to say that obviously you're not all the tragedies in the world and everything that's happening, the devastation in Puerto Rico.
Yep. Let me ask you though, Chuck.
It just goes
Chuck,
on.
3 landfall hurricanes, first time in history, in recorded history. You have the worst type of shooting attack in American history at this mass level. 59 dead, over 500 and some injured. Many are still in critical and serious and different degrees of condition. So the death toll could easily climb from 59. And yet, no matter what happens, North Korea wants to put the world on fire. Chuck, I've been doing this for 26 years. You've been doing what you've been doing even longer than that. And I was very tuned into politics long before I became a broadcaster, since I was a young teenager and voted in my first election at age 18. I have never seen a time in my lifetime where our financial markets are more impervious. They're not affected, it seems, by anything that used to affect them.
We oftentimes talk, Harry, about the maturity of the markets, and if we go back about a decade or so, all the events that have happened, in the last several months would have, I think, had somewhat of a devastating effect with the markets. That down fairly significantly, because you think about it, you have event after event. We've had 4 events now that have all been, they've been tragic. And I've never seen anything like this before, Harry, where the market just has a tendency to shrug things off. And we'll see, earnings are coming. There are some of the forecasts we have seen in some of the industries and companies within those respective industries and sectors are the bar set pretty high. So we're going to know, Harry, probably within the next 2 weeks or so when we're back, clearly understanding the tone of the markets, the volatility of the markets, and ultimately how the markets are performing as a result of the third quarter 2017 earnings.
But it is remarkable, isn't it?
Harry, I think the first thing you think, and especially yesterday, very early in the morning, you're thinking the Dow will be down 150, 200, 250, and
instead it's up more than 150.
And it was up. It closed on the high. I think for the day, Harry, but obviously, the pre-market was good. The pre-market today, the indices again are higher. And, it just goes to show that, again, it's not timing the market, it's spending time in the market.
Chuck, if I said to you that on October 3rd, 2017, the Dow Jones Industrial Average would be 22,557.60, the NASDAQ would be 6516.72, and the S&P 500 would be 2,529.12, and that is before this morning's markets open. What would you say to that?
Harry, I don't think it's unreasonable.
It's not unreasonable,
but
it has been steady progress.
And I think that the fact that if you look at Q2 earnings and Q1 and where the comps were year over year, and
let me finish.
I'm
going to push back because you said you wouldn't be surprised. When's the last time we had new records being set every 4 to 5 days for a year?
It's been a long time. I don't think, Harry, it's, you think about it.
So we should be very surprised is what I'm saying. I'm not surprised because I knew what was going to happen. We can't ignore that the American people made a course correction, and suddenly we have 3.1% GDP, and we have all 3 major indices at all-time records, and they've been setting records every 4 days, which means every week there's a new record for a year. There is a reason that this all changed.
I think you're maybe trying to take me down a path that I'm not going to necessarily go with you right now, because it's not politics.
What I'm saying is not politics.
And I think it is a lot of fundamentals, and it's earnings. And the fact of the matter is
why wasn't it happening for the previous 8 years? Because QE1, QE2, and all that was going on, and we were at point nothing.
As we approached the third quarter of last year, 2016, earnings were starting to track better. The same thing held true for the fourth quarter, the first quarter of this year, and the second quarter of this year. Now, I think what we have to really take a look at are the projections of earnings versus Q3 a year ago. Are we going to be in line? Because I think, Harry, if something happens and there are some negative surprises, whether it's a sector or an industry within a sector or an individual company, I mean, as you have seen it before and your listeners have seen it before, that, sometimes stocks get taken out to the woodshed, and it will happen.
Well, we also know, Chuck, I mean, we have all of history to back us up on this. It just can't keep setting records every 4 or 5 days. It's doing this for a year. It can't continue to do this forever.
You're right, and we've had some mini corrections along the way, but Harry, we have not seen, and I don't know the exact number of days, but We have not seen a 5% correction in I want to say it's over 400 plus days, maybe even more. And so, when people put money to work, they oftentimes question whether or not it's the right time. Now, think about this for a minute. If you sat on the sidelines, because I spoke with a couple of prospective clients last week, and they admittedly said, hey, we looked at the election. We were very, very concerned. We woke up the next morning, or we woke up and then we basically sold our equities. And now they're sitting with a fair amount of cash. And so now it's a matter of what is the proper strategy to, redeploy that cash, Harry. I mean, I don't think you come in immediately. I think you have to kind of pick your spots. And probably more importantly, I think what I would rather do is maybe dollar cost average the money in versus coming in all at once. But again, that's an individual decision. But I think those people, institutions, retail investors that did in fact, hit the button and say, hey, we're out of here. I think obviously they regret, the move that they made.
We're going to take our first break. Chuck is going to be with us until about 45 minutes past the hour. We'll then take our final break at that point. And when we come back in the final 10 minutes or thereabouts that we have, I have two major items I did not get to share with you in the first 2 hours of the program, and we know what we're doing in the fourth quarter. We have Councilman George Tibbett, who will be dropping by at 9:05. I do know that Tom Forkin wants to check in after Tibbett. We're going to take your phone calls, and we're going to get your reaction to my breaking news report from the 7:35 portion of the program this morning about what's happening with the messenger ballots, the mail-in ballots in Atlantic City. A Board of Elections member, Ernie Aponte, called in. I thought that he was very value-added. We have a lot to catch up on. We will do so in the 9 o'clock hour this morning. Chuck Malamut continues, and a reminder for all of your financial planning needs. Don't just do as I say, do as I do. Turn to Chuck Malamut and the Malamut Group for all of your financial planning needs. 609-383-2010. More financial matters with Chuck Malamut in just a few minutes.
Join Mark Patrick Hypnosis and lose all the weight, 100% money back guaranteed.
Since August, I can honestly say I have not had one potato chip.
Bridget, how much have you lost now?
I have lost a total of 83 pounds.
Holy cow.
It's easy, it's fun, very relaxing, and very successful.
And only $49.99 guaranteed. Allow hypnosis to destroy unwanted cravings, late day eating binges, boredom eating, stress eating. Also, stop smoking with Mark Patrick Hypnosis. No matter how many times you've tried to quit, hypnosis is designed to destroy your desire to smoke without cravings, irritability, or weight gain, or your money back. Join the over 500,000 others who've attended and stopped smoking the Mark Patrick way. Seminar is Saturday, October 21st at the Absecon Holiday Inn Express and Suites Hotel. Weight loss seminar, 10 till noon. Stop smoking seminar, 1 till 3. And Sunday, October 22nd at the Vineland Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Weight loss seminar, noon till 2. Stop smoking seminar, 3 till 5. More info at markpatrickseminars.com.
This is Harry Hurley for All Season Solar, our official and exclusive solar energy provider to the Hurley in the Morning program. They design and they install the most attractive, efficient, state-of-the-art solar photovoltaic systems from the world's leading manufacturers. What I love about dealing with All Season Solar, they're your single point of contact. They do the system design, engineering, your building permits, installation, and the ultimate glorious utility connection day. They take care of everything under the sun so that you can sit back and reap the savings. Call Frank Neal today, 609-317-5491. That's Frank Neal, All Season Solar, 609-317-5491. There's never been a better time to go solar. The benefits are there. New Jersey leads the East Coast and second largest in the entire United States in terms of solar energy panel installation. No deposits, no hidden fees, no out-of-pocket costs. All Season Solar. Tell them Hurley in the Morning sent you.
Hi, it's Mark Levin. Join me at 6 this evening. Now back to the Mayor of the Morning, Harry Hurley, on WPG Talk Radio 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
We are back, 19 minutes past the hour. I'm Hurley in the Morning. He is Chuck Malamut again for all of your financial planning needs, turn to the official, the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, Chuck Malamut, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office, literally for all of your financial planning needs. People ask me, Chuck can help me with college building? Yes. Help me with retirement planning? Yes. Vacation building? Yes. Christmas club? Anything you want to plan for. 609-383-2010. All of your financial planning needs means all of your financial planning needs. Chuck Malamut and the Malamut Group. Chuck, you have so much to cover. Time is yours.
Harry, we'll do Q3 very, very quickly. So who would ever believe that another quarter in the books, risk assets rallied, bonds did not. International equity markets were clearly the winner, with the U.S. Leading the U.S. Emerging markets, which are the most aggressive compared to your traditional domestic international markets. Emerging markets were up 8% for the quarter. That's because of what happened in Latin America. Equities throughout the world were up. We've had a declining dollar along the way, which has helped international companies. In the meantime, when you look at the Russell and you look at the Dow and you look at the NASDAQ, as you mentioned before, hitting records, and clearly the loser, I guess, or the worst performing was fixed income. And so what investors are faced with now is, and what we do is we want to obviously protect a portfolio, but we have to be somewhat conscious and concerned with respect to where interest rates are. I think the Fed is pretty much broadcast on the short end of the curve that they're going to raise rates 25 basis points in December. They're going in and continuing. They're going to reduce the balance sheet, so to speak. So I think that you said, well, what does the market think about? I think I think even though it's not the stock market, I think the stock market somewhat looks to the bond market to see what the next steps are going to be. But all in all, as you mentioned before, a very, very good quarter. Not including what had transpired yesterday. S&P Dow up 14 to 15%, NASDAQ up over 20, emerging markets up over close to 30.
Extraordinary.
I don't think anyone would have believed that the progress that we've made. And I think what's very, very interesting is the fact that because we live here in the U.S., most of our focus here is domestic, and we can't lose sight of what goes on outside of the U.S. And the fact of the matter is that as things improve over in Europe and in the Far East, that's obviously going to have a positive impact on what we do here as well.
Chuck, this is not on your very hearty list of things to cover this morning, but let me slip it in. I saw a very brief report, never saw it again. There's been no big deal made out of it, but somebody is floating that, and you might even know the name. I can't remember his name, and I didn't write it down. I had not heard of him before, but from what I heard in the introduction of him, really fine pedigree and maybe the head of one of the other, banks, high-ranking type, reserve banks, but not the Fed, that perhaps President Trump is eyeing a certain gentleman for Fed chair. Did you hear that?
I did, Harry, and I think that we're still in that 2 to 3 week period of time where a lot of rumors are going to get floated out there. Last week, I think the rumor was that he was going to ask Janet Yellen to stay on.
That's what I had heard.
But you can't. The one thing that we've recognized about this administration is that things happen when you least expect it, and sometimes the door closes very, very quickly. If you have one of those positions and you're representing, you're representing the country or our president.
Can I make a statement that I know from personal experience, and it has carried on throughout the entire first year of the presidency? Usually, the first name you hear doesn't get it. Just remember where you heard that.
Okay,
that's 100% so far. The first name you hear doesn't get it.
But Harry, look, as you know, we don't spend.
You know what that means, by the way.
I know. Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time talking during our hour about politics. But you think about what we just chatted about a few minutes ago. All the tragic events that have they've been basically that have happened since the end of since November. I don't think it's happened in any presidency, and
it hasn't.
And
I've heard basically a bipartisan, nonpartisan consensus of that. There's never been anything like it. I mean, think about everything from 3 land-based hurricanes in American territories. So that's all the same to me. Puerto Rico, and the 3.4 million there, they're Americans, and they got flattened. It's horrible. And all the other things that have gone on, from Russia collusion to North Korea to countless other things, including obviously this horrific attack, this terrorist attack that took place the night before last in Las Vegas. Wasn't that, Chuck, chilling to wake up to? I woke up to it literally right after it happened because, like you, so many people that we work directly with, so many friends that we have, they're right there on that strip.
They are. The first thing, Harry, obviously there's a 3-hour time delay. After you worked through the time delay, I got on the phone while I was traveling and yesterday, and had an opportunity to connect with everyone and that I know out there, and they're good, but obviously all shaken. And remember, Las Vegas is a metropolitan city, and most of the people that I know, and I think that don't necessarily work on the Strip, and they live, they live in the suburbs, so to speak.
Chuck, in terms of 22,000 people that are outside that would never think in America, even after 9/11, 2001, and even after some of the mass shootings that we've seen, that somebody from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Casino Resort would set up just an arsenal of weapons and ammunition and go on a 10 to 15 minute nonstop automatic, because he had the equipment to modify sub-automatic weapons into automatic weapons, nonstop for 10 or 15 minutes, just spraying into this crowd of 22,000. It really is. It challenges our ability to comprehend.
Harry, I think when you read the news the first time on your phone, or you listened to whatever venue you're listening or watching, I think you're just shaking your head in disbelief and saying this is just a really bad dream. And unfortunately, that was not the case.
Does this affect like where you will go, where you will put yourself? I mean, because obviously, even if it's, I don't believe this is ISIS. I believe this was a domestic terrorist. But this whole thing is to try to just uproot what we've always been able to do as free, citizens, to be able to peaceably assemble. Who would believe you're in day 3 of an iconic country music festival? It's the final song. Jason Aldean is playing. And then all of a sudden, people think it's fireworks and stuff. Pop, 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 pop. And it just doesn't stop. Then they realize people are getting right next to them shot. And it's like, it's surreal.
A very good friend of mine is actually in Vegas right now, Harry, for work. And I asked, via text, like, how are you? What's going on? And he says he's good, but he said it's very weird there. As you can well imagine, because you have that very, very eerie feeling, and not to make light of what's going on, but I think what he said was that while it's bad, it's kind of like like the hurricanes. It's bad, but the media has a tendency to, at times, Harry, I think, just take these stories and run with them, and even though obviously it's a tragedy, it's awful, but he said it's not as bad as what you're seeing portrayed through the media. Well,
because and let me just say that about sort of my vocation. I think they've been horrible. I think they conduct themselves terribly, and I know this has nothing to do with the Malamut Financial Program, but I couldn't agree with you more, or with the person that said that to you. They come up with this horrible doom and gloom music, dramatic music, and playing the sound, the bang, 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 all day, all night. It's exploitative, and I think it's absolutely unseemly, and it's horrible. They almost encourage the next person who wants to outdo what the last person did. Hate to say it.
No, you're I agree with you 100% on that.
So sad to say it. Bottom of the hour break. He is Chuck Malamut. I am Hurley in the Morning. Much more to cover. Equities and tax reform, the economic data, economic growth, equities. Is there volatility? Is there not volatility? A whole lot more. With Chuck Malamut, a reminder for all of your financial planning needs. You turn to Chuck Malamut. Call this number, 609-383-2010, for all of your financial planning needs. I'm Hurley in the Morning with Chuck, and we'll be right back.
WPG Talk Radio 104.1 is South Jersey's dependable station for news, traffic, and weather for your ride home. Listen weekdays from 3 to 6 as Sean Hannity debates the hot topics of the day. The Town Square News Network keeps you informed with South Jersey news, meteorologist Dan Zero's forecast 4 times an hour, and South Jersey traffic updates to get you home faster. For your ride home, make the switch to WPG Talk Radio 104.1.
This is Michael Medved. I'm here with Mike Stahl from Health Markets, helping folks find the right Medicare coverage. The news reports say that the rates might be going down.
The government projects the cost of Medicare plans will decrease this year. So you have to ask yourself, are you getting the best rate? Health Markets offers a free service with access to thousands of Medicare plans nationwide to help folks maximize their benefits and save money.
What is it people need to keep in mind?
Enrollment in the right plan is not automatic. With so many Medicare options, it can be confusing. My advice, don't go it alone. Get unbiased help to find a plan that may cost less and cover more with lower co-payments, more choices like dental and vision, and the freedom to choose your doctors. With the enrollment deadline only weeks away, it's important to act now. Our Health Markets Medicare assistance is free.
Thanks, Mike. This is Michael Medved for Health Markets.
For your free Medicare assistance, call 800-598-8804. That's 800-598-8804. 800-598-8804.
Your credit card companies love you. They love it when your cards stay maxed out. They love it when you only make minimum payments. They love it when you struggle. Why? Because they own you. And minimum payments mean maximum profits. Here's great news. National Debt Relief is now offering you free information on how to escape your credit card debt nightmare. If you owe more than $10,000 in credit card debt and only barely making minimum payments, know this. You may not have to pay it all back. In fact, you may have the right to settle that debt for only a fraction of what you owe. National Debt Relief has helped thousands of people get rid of over $500 million of debt, and they're A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Get the information you need for free right now before this offer goes away. Call National Debt Relief now and escape your credit card debt troubles. 800-910-4005. 800-910-4005. 800-910-4005.
True colors. That's what we're learning about Colin Bell and his true nature. At the height of the foreclosure crisis, Colin Bell created a business forcing struggling families to pay Bell or lose their home. Yep, Bell devised a scheme to get rich by taking the homes of working families, kicking them when they're down. It's greedy, it's heartless, and Bell did it. When he thought no one was looking, Bell plotted to take away people's homes for a nice profit. Here's how it works. Bell buys your tax lien. Then if you miss a payment, he gets your home, and he gets it cheap. The real Colin Bell, his true colors. Preying on desperate homeowners, trying to cash in by kicking people out. Proof you can't trust Colin Bell. Paid for by South Jersey Families First, P.O. Box 3321, Margate, New Jersey, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
This is John O'Hurley, and you're listening to O'Hurley in the Morning.
Thank you very much. Chuck Malamut is here for all of your financial planning needs. Turn to the exclusive financial advisor for the Hurley in the Morning program, the Hurley in the Morning charity. In our 26th year together, broadcasting on Tuesdays in the 8 o'clock hour, our official financial advisor, Chuck Malamut, 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. Chuck, we are now on equities and tax reform.
Well, Harry, it seems as if every day the game changes here a little bit with respect to what's going to be happening, with tax reform. So, we've been, from the beginning of the year, pretty much suggesting that, this is going to be the only pro-growth initiative that could come to fruition before the 2018 midterm elections. I mean, we see, and unfortunately witnessing what is happening with healthcare. I'm not quite certain where that's going to go, but the details around tax reform, keep changing. And I've had several calls with clients that with the repatriation of funds back to the U.S. with tax rates changing, we need to rework the portfolio. And I oftentimes say, well, nothing here is cast in concrete, so you might want to just wait a little bit. But what we do know is that most members of Congress, support the core objectives of rationalizing corporate tax structure and reducing taxes to middle income Americans. I mean, you have that discussion. The rich people need to pay more. None of us know where we're going to go with this. So we're cautiously optimistic, Harry, that we're going to see some sort of modest tax reform package that's going to pass in early 2018. Now, it's really hard at this point in time to understand the possible economic and the market effects on a bill that hasn't even been drafted. But if it should come to pass, we think tax reform is going to be obviously a plus not only for the economy but for also the equity markets. And
I think actually with the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act for your program, I'll call it that. I think they have to do something with taxes, or they're going to literally look like a do-nothing Congress.
Yeah. So if the corporate tax rate is reduced, we think we think that between tax cuts and repatriation, it could add anywhere from $6 to $8 to S&P earnings next year.
You just covered something I was going to ask you, but I'm going to ask you to do a little bit, go a little deeper into it. I'm not sure, and I'm not qualified to say what it means, but we don't know if it's $2 trillion, $3 trillion, $4 trillion. It's a lot. It's multiple trillions, I believe, that if they set a very low tax to bring it here home and incentivize people to bring the money here at home and have that money go to work, how significant would that be for our country?
Well, between the repatriation, between the tax cuts that they're talking, and the fact that if you look at overall S&P earnings, increasing by roughly $6 to $8, per the S&P, that's that stronger economic growth that we're going to see is coming, from fiscal stimulus is finally going to take the burden off, as you talked about earlier, QE1, 2, and 3, off of the monetary stimulus, which ultimately will allow monetary policy to become more easily normalized, so to speak. So it's going to return us back to where we were, prior to what happened over the last 8+ years. So I don't have a number, Harry, but we are pretty confident that if this does in fact happen, that it's going to obviously push equities higher from this point in time.
It would be a big deal, wouldn't it? I have to believe bringing trillions of dollars back to our country has to be a really big deal.
I mean, Harry, when was the last time we've had tax reform? I mean,
1980s.
So you think about just the fact that this is in discussion, and it sounds as if it's going to, get pushed to the next level. I think that's a very, very big deal, and if it doesn't happen, as you mentioned, in 2018, it's going to go down as
there'll be an electoral price to pay.
Exactly.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
Economic data. Is there volatility?
Well, sure, Harry. I mean, you think about it. All the damage that has been done, with the hurricanes. I mean, obviously Puerto Rico is not a big piece of the economy, but I heard just this morning, Harry, 5% of power and cell phones have been restored. And this is now we're in week 2. It's going, and there's a whole discussion about the rebuilding of that island and how it's going to get rebuilt and who's going to be responsible. And that's probably a conversation for another day. But, if you look at payrolls, you look at retail sale wages, you look at other data points, with respect to the economy, they're probably going to be a little depressed in the third quarter, but should rebound in the fourth quarter and beyond that because, we're kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Obviously the hurricanes here domestically are going to have an impact in Florida and Texas, but again, we don't look at any one given day. We got to be more forward looking to understand, what's going to happen with respect to the economy.
I've been studying this whole issue, what's been happening in Puerto Rico and some of the controversies and different things. They let their whole – it isn't actually the power plant. It's the transmission lines and the poles. They were in such bad shape. Now, this was such a significant Category 5 hit, and they had a hit before that. So they had two hurricanes, actually, within a couple weeks. But they're really paying, I think, a lot for not upkeeping things, too.
No, the infrastructure. Look, if you look at what has happened to the debt within Puerto Rico, I mean, as you know, if you didn't have geo-insured paper, you didn't get paid. And the infrastructure has been neglected for the better part, 10, 15, 20 years. And now, you have to rebuild the island. So the question is, where does the money come from? What happens to the existing bondholders? I mean,
Chuck, they don't have the money to rebuild an entire nation. I mean, they are flattened. Literally, they need to install every telephone pole, every transmission line. And I thought there was more than 5% restored. You shocked me with that number. But in a way, I shouldn't be shocked because they were devastated. And it's very tough to get anywhere right now because of how devastated, the land is even. But is this going to be the taxpayers of the United States of America are going to have to pay to rebuild the island of Puerto Rico?
Harry, I think at the end of the day, I'm not sure where else the money is going to come from.
It's not going. It's the only way.
And so I think what's going to happen is
there will be the legislation being presented before Congress, and all spending measures originate in the House, and it's going to be something like the Puerto Rico bailout or whatever they're going to call it. But Puerto Rico cannot do this on their own. They need a bailout.
Oh, absolutely, Harry. They were in such dire straits before. If you look at the price of their general obligation bonds, they're down about 10 to 15% from where they were prior to the hurricane, and those bonds were priced in the 60s. So now they're in the 50s.
Yeah,
so
I'm wondering if this would also bring about discussion of statehood, which in our lifetime it gets whispered or even mentioned a little bit out loud, and then it just disappears. For example, the District of Columbia, I understand why that's set up the way it is. We have a delegate, not really a congresswoman. Eleanor Holmes Norton is a delegate. She gets to go to all the congressional things, but she's not really a voting member of one of the 435. But that was because they set up Washington, D.C. as our seat of government. I get that. The territory of Puerto Rico, if we're responsible for everything anyhow, and they're American citizens by birthright, what are we doing? I don't even understand it. So we say it's a territory.
I think.
But yet we're going to rebuild the entire island.
Matter of semantics, I think, to a certain degree. I mean, they quote, "Are they a state?"
They're not a state.
Should they be a state?
That's what I'm saying.
And,
they're a territory.
And I think at the end of the day, they probably should be a state because if you think about, they obviously got themselves in a very, very difficult position prior to the hurricane. And, do you blame it on poor oversight, bad management, bad fiscal spending? I mean, it can be any of a number of. But we've talked about Puerto Rico several years ago with respect to the governance of that country or territory or maybe soon to be state. And there's always been some issues for many, many years. And now, Harry, I mean, we can probably debate this all day long. Is it good, bad, or indifferent? That the United States is going to be responsible for rebuilding Puerto Rico. They do not have the capacity and the bond rating, so to speak, to go get funding. It's not going to happen.
That's why I don't like the idea on its face. But if I had a vote, and I guess I have a vote as a citizen, I would I would say there's no other alternative, and I would just accept the fact that we, the taxpayers of the United States of America, we're going to pay for our fellow Americans, because I treat the situation that they are fellow Americans just like all of us. They're not second class. I don't believe all this stuff that's being talked about, how they got treated differently than the people in Florida and in Texas and and elsewhere. I don't believe that. But I'll tell you what's going to be an interesting conversation, and some are already having it. I chose not to have it too early because I like to let people catch their breath and let's let them get back. They got sent back probably a couple centuries with what happened on that day, if you think about it.
Yeah, Harry, if you think about the entire infrastructure.
Gone. So I'm for letting them catch their breath. But the crass people in my business, just like that have exploited what happened in Las Vegas, they're talking about 1 million people from Puerto Rico that will move to Florida.
Correct.
And, of course, we know what that means. That would change electorally. I don't know how Florida could take 1 million people just like that. So it will stretch just so many resources in so many different ways. Chuck, let's talk about the economic growth.
So, Harry, we think, as we've kind of have been chatting about this anyway, that nominal growth in the U.S. Dropped below 3% in 2016, if you remember, for a fair amount of the year, but it's since increased as a result of easier lending standards, low credit spreads, slowing unit labor costs. So we expect those factors are going to continue, which should help corporate revenues, allowing companies to increase their respective capital expenditures and increase wages. So in turn, this is going to lead to an increase in inflation, we believe, over the next several years. So again, I think that's something that your listeners need to be made aware of there.
And finally, Chuck, equities and volatility.
Well, Harry, look, again, it's nothing new. We spent a fair amount of time talking about it today. So what's October? October is Halloween.
Yes.
It's the witching hour.
Yes.
It's mischief night.
Our house is already set up.
It also has been associated with negative surprises for investors. October. If you remember, the major stock market crash is 1929, 1987.
I was in Disney World at that one.
The Asian currency crisis in 1998. All of that happened during the month of October. So we see a very, very small probability, no likelihood of any similar event happening anytime soon. Your house is very nice,
Ponderosa,
Harry.
Chuck.
There you go.
Pumpkin Man. Pumpkinhead right there.
But we think, Harry, the volatility is going to increase over the next couple months. And that's not such a bad thing for the markets. Global political events, the upcoming election in Japan, the tax debate in the U.S., the ongoing tensions in North Korea. That's something this is something we're living with every day. That could, in fact, those events could, in fact, rattle the markets, along with ongoing Fed Reserve tightening and a possible uptick in inflation. So, Treasuries, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, Harry, fell to the lowest levels in 2017. I think the 10-year was at a 2.12. And is now increased by about 25 basis points. So as investors expect the Fed is going to tighten, economic growth will solidify. We think we're going to see some upward pressure with yields. So, we think 2.5 is sort of a barrier, maybe approaching 3 over the next year or so. But having said all that, we think that sort of acts as a tailwind for equities. We don't expect, prices to increase evenly, like as you mentioned, it's not every day.
Yep.
But we think equities are more likely to outperform bonds than similar to what they've done in the past in the next year or so.
Barron, the Dow Jones and Business and Financial Weekly publication Power List of America's top financial advisors. No accident that Chuck Malamut, a repeat winner on that list many times over the years and in their coveted top 50 list in New Jersey. Chuck, thanks for a great program. 609-383-2010 for all of your financial planning needs. Turn to Chuck Malamut, the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield, New Jersey office. Well done, Chuck.
Harry, thanks.
Brilliant.
See you next week.
Brilliant analysis. We'll be back. I have 2 important issues that I want to share with you. Then at 9:05, we're going to present Atlantic City Councilman at Large George Tibbett because he has shown up on a mystery ballot. I'll explain. If you missed the 7:35 to 8 o'clock portion of the program, you missed a lot. But this is a very benevolent course, and we will do a refresher coming up in 15 minutes.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Simplify Medical's clinical trial for spinal disc replacement. Visit simplifytrial.com.
Not only do we get allergies in the fall, but our dogs and cats can suffer with them too. Now there's a new treatment that can help. Here with more is Dr. Mark Newkirk of Newkirk Family Veterinarians in Egg Harbor Township. What is this treatment?
Well, this is called Cytopoint, and the difference in animals versus humans is we technically get all stuffy and dogs start scratching and itching and damaging their skin. But Cytopoint is a monoclonal antibody, which is a new breakthrough. It's a biological therapy, and what it does is neutralize something called interleukin, which is what triggers the allergy in the first place. So we give injections. It's almost like a vaccination, which then neutralizes the elevation of the interleukin, so then the itch does not occur.
Health Update with Robin Stoloff, brought to you by Simplify Medical's clinical trial for spinal disc replacement. Visit simplifytrial.com.
Want to know why Atlantic City is in such dire financial straits? Because of guys like Atlantic County Sheriff candidate Eric Scheffler. To the rest of us, that sound means we received a text. To Scheffler, that sound meant during his time with the Atlantic City Police Department. As the ACPD training officer, Scheffler made it mandatory that he receive a text whenever a canine unit was deployed while he was off duty. He then charged the city 4 hours of comp time every time he answered a text. Records show that when he answered 2 texts the same day, Scheffler wouldn't be shortchanged by the taxpayers. He charged the city for 8 hours of comp time to respond twice via text. ACPD email records show that Scheffler emailed out proposals and bills related to his own private business from his ACPD email address while on duty. Atlantic County can't afford Eric Scheffler as sheriff.
Paid for by Jack Lasser for Atlantic County Sheriff.
The Insane Inflatable 5K is coming to town in just a few weeks, and you and your crew are invited to the bounce party. Fitness can be fun as you bob, weave through ball maze and crash course and get your bounce and slide on with the wall, wrecking balls, and 7 additional inflatables. Check it out and register early to take advantage of special savings at InsaneInflatable5K.com.
The Insane Inflatable 5K is the most fun, wild, and insane obstacle run in the world. And on Saturday, October 7th, it's at the Flying W Airport in Medford. Brought to you by State Farm.
Hi, it's Brian Kilmeade. Join me next at 10, then Sean Hannity at 3. Now back to Harry Hurley on WPG Talk Radio, 104.1, South Jersey's talk station.
Thank you, Chuck Malamut. Here were the 2 items I did not get in between 6 and 7:30. And, you know, I hold you responsible for that because we love to take your calls. And sometimes I don't get nearly through much of the show prep that we do. Something that I don't know if you picked up on this, because I can't be held responsible for how my mind processes things. We're all different. We all can look at things. I see certain things, and they almost instantly look like something else other than what I'm looking at or what I'm hearing, because I can take what I'm hearing or what I'm seeing, and I process it very quickly, and then I immediately think of what does it really mean. For example, I learn about the news that ESPN, the network, changed its mind, changed its policy about airing the national anthem. They had made a conscious decision to not air the national anthem or any of the things that really go on before the game begins. So what happens is while the national anthem is playing, or if there's a singer or somebody, you know, like the Yankees used to have Ronan Tynan all the time. I don't know what happened there. They play Kate Smith all the time now, which is great, but I used to love it. Ronan Tynan would do the preamble to the it was just beautiful. But he doesn't do it anymore. I don't know what happened there. And they don't seem to have live performers ever do it. I hope they have somebody tonight. This is such a huge evening. I haven't had a chance to tell you, but 8 o'clock tonight is you play 162 games, and if you lose tonight, your season is over. If you win, and they're playing Minnesota, and the Yankees play very well at home, I mean, I'm hoping they It's terrible to play the whole year and lose in one game, the right to be in an actual playoff series where if you lost one game, it's not the end of the world. But tonight it is, at least the sports world, for your team until the next season. So ESPN changed its mind. And then this was after, and they acknowledged, I'm not like stretching anything here. They clearly said that it was a reversal of course, and that one that reflect their network's decision to remain nimble and to do this or do that, just as they had made a decision to not air the national anthem after the mass shootings in Las Vegas. They decided to air the national anthem, and they aired something that took place right before that. So my question immediately when I heard this was, if it's the right thing to do after a tragic mass shooting, why wasn't it the right thing to do in the first place? See if you can answer that question for yourself. I've already settled it in my mind. This is everything you need to know about what's wrong and how we need to somehow, as citizens, push back and flip this script. Because I repeat, if ESPN announced that they were changing their policy about airing the national anthem, and that, in fact, before last night's game, they would actually air it because of the 59 that were shot dead and the more than 500 that were injured and shot. If it was the right thing to do after that mass shooting, why wasn't it the right thing to do before it? I know that's a persistent, stubborn, and intellectually honest question that they don't seem to ever have to answer. But I want you to ponder that because it tells you a lot about what you need to know. It's only important to be patriotic and honor our country and honor our military and honor our paramilitary and honor our nation and our Pledge of Allegiance or our national anthem. It's only required after something like that happens. Doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like the same people that complain about anything, that has anything to do with separation of church and state, and then go put yourself in some life and death situation, building collapses, or there's some hostage crisis, or whatever, mass shooter in a public building or anything, and the first thing people are doing is praying underneath a table or in a closet or wherever. So how about we do this? How about we do the right thing all the time and not be weirdo, leftist, socialist, Marxists that, we better change that because of this happening. We should be just as insistent that it be honored and done any day, not just because a mass attack happened. I couldn't be more just passionate about that. Here's something else that I wish I had about 2 more minutes, but I'll give my best 2 minutes on it. Pew did a survey, and it's getting very little coverage by the networks, but President Trump's first days in office, his coverage was 2/3 negative, only 5% positive assessment coverage. By comparison, so the president has nearly 66% negative coverage, 5% positive. Then you would, what's the rest? The rest is not considered positive or negative. It's considered neutral, just covering an issue. For example, if you say President Trump visited so-and-so today or visited this area or had a bill signing, that wouldn't be considered positive or negative. It would be that 30% that's just routine. It's not positive or negative. It's just neutral. Barack Obama only had 20% negative stories. President George W. Bush only had 28% negative stories. Look at the difference. And I will tell you, Barack Obama had close to 70%, I think it was, positive coverage. George W. Bush, it wasn't nearly that high, but it was way beyond. It was like 40% positive coverage. President Trump, just 5% positive coverage. That's incredible. Truly incredible. They broke down President Trump on all these negative stories on political skills, immigration, appointments, nominations, U.S.-Russia relations, and health care. And they just have hammered him for the past 9 months. 5% positive coverage. My breaking news from 7:35 comes back fresh right now. Councilman George Tibbett next.
104.1 WPGG Atlantic City, WSJO 104.9 HD2 Egg Harbor City. Everything you need to know in 6 minutes starts now.
He had 10 suitcases filled with 23 guns and 19 more at his home. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
He was a sick man, a demented man.
President Trump talking about the gunman behind the Las Vegas shooting spree Sunday and praising police for their response. 59 people were killed, 527 injured, some still critical, from a hotel room above a country music festival, and we still don't know why Stephen Paddock attacked. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal's live in Las Vegas.